right, welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, it's time for our interview segment. As you've seen, right, that my guest is the Managing Director, ALANA Green Limited. He's Bountiful Atako. Bountiful. Bountiful. That's a word associated also with agriculture. The harvest is bountiful. Or is it because you're in Agric, you know? Did you rename yourself, or was that the name your parents gave to you?
Okay, so
because people are renaming themselves now.
okay, so my grandmom gave me the name Bountiful.
Okay.
And it's weird though, because today I find that I'm in agriculture, and the name is associated to the sector. So I see that the sector is where I was meant to be for starters. So.
You know, that's why they say you need to be very careful, you know, especially when you have children, the kind of names you call them or what you say in terms of confessions or affirmations, because you may never know.
That's correct.
What happens. So imagine what your grandmom, you know, the name your grandmom gave you many years ago. So welcome to you, Bountiful. We're talking earlier, you said you were listening to what I said about Ajibanga.
Yeah, that's correct.
The World Bank president. What do you have to say about that?
Okay, so I was following up on in the waiting room on your discussions about the IMF conference currently holding in Morocco, Marrakesh, and I find your opinions about the World Bank president correct, and this is why I say so. So Ajibanga is from India, right? And India, something with Indians, no matter where they
Originally
grow.
from India.
Originally from India.
But American citizens,
so,
because like World Bank presidents are American citizens.
Yeah, I hear you, but you know, no matter where Indians are, gain citizenship, they are always firstly Indians, even as we see with the case of the Prime Minister of London. So, India
of
the UK,
Rishi Sunak.
Thank you very much. So, India and Nigeria has similarities, right, as regards our environment and the challenges that we face. So I feel that that's why the IMF is moving in this direction, because
that's the World Bank.
The World Bank, I'm sorry, is moving in this direction because of the presidency of Ajibanga at the time.
You know, just like I said, I've been watching him in the last few days, and it's like a breath of fresh air. You know, and that is what leadership. In fact, I was watching him yesterday. I've been watching since the meeting started. And I was like, what is this guy bringing to the table? I'm not saying the other leadership styles are not okay, but that's the leadership style that I can relate with. This is, at a press conference yesterday, he talked about, and why I'm also bringing this is that for leaders that are watching, for government officials that are watching, you are there to serve the people. Exactly. AJ actually told one journalist yesterday, said, just call me AJ. Of course, we know we have culture here. Just call me AJ, don't call me president. I'm allergic to it. Yeah. And this is a man that he stood up and spoke, took the microphone, was answering the questions of everybody. He did not sit down. The chief economist was by the side. In fact, the chief economist said, you are doing better. I don't think I should be here. But he was bringing him in. He stood for close to 1 hour or more than that, and he was relatable. He was able to, communicate with the audience. I was watching, I was like, wow,
so I agree with you.
This is really different.
I agree with you. He has exceptional leadership style. I've also been following up with his relationships with the president of the AFDB, and I think they're doing amazing work together. And we're looking, in the future to see what their interventions will be as it concerns agriculture and renewable energy, so to speak.
In fact, in one of the meetings he had, I think was it yesterday, just before I came into the studio, he had a press conference at 10 a.m. and Nigeria and Morocco on the same time zone right now. So 10 a.m. yesterday, just before I came into the studio, he mentioned Nigeria, that I was in Nigeria, which we all know. He was in Nigeria, I think, 2 months or a month ago. Also, he came here to Abuja. Like, you could see that this is a man that has boots. Hands-on and has boots on the ground.
Yes.
Private sector, isn't it? He came from the private sector.
Of course, I agree with you.
But it's not that it's private sector that is everything, because we also know there are a lot of private sector people that are not that efficient.
So I have this thing that I tease with one of my colleagues, and I say I go to conferences a lot, and when it's a government conference, I have a ton of, because I have a thing that I never go to meetings late. Church, work, and all of that. Is this discipline for me? Because I feel a man who can keep to his time cannot keep to his word. But you find that with us in Nigeria, the problem we say is government, and government is supposed to be the solution. So we can't take it away from the private sector. The work is more rigorous. We have KPIs. I'm not sure any superior reverses any government official's KPI. I don't think if you ask a government official now what KPI is, they'll be able to tell you. And you see these people sit in conferences, you hear them profile solutions to problems, and you'll be amazed that, like, what are these guys talking about? Are we in the 60s or are we in the 70s? You know, the world has moved from traditional methods to embracing technology, to doing stuff, you know, in a modernized way. But you find that government is uncomfortable embracing change. I think that's the position. They can't embrace change. So when you see someone like Ajibanga coming in from the private sector, it's because of the thick skin that the private sector gives you. So you're always on your heels. You're always pushed to do, you know, the work. And
Bountiful, let me also bring this in before we move into our discussion, because it's as if today's show is like tying in from what we've been doing since, and what the content has been from Ajibanga. When you talked about conferences, something came to my mind, which actually upsets me. I anchor and I moderate conferences a lot. And when it's time for, like, the ministers to speak, you will see them, both the vice president, everybody will be there. After speaking opening remarks, their keynote addresses, and whatever welcome remarks, they leave.
yeah, they leave.
And
It's
I'm
terrible.
like, are you, what exactly is happening? Where are they living to?
Yeah.
So I am in the room and I'm having a sense of, sometimes even the audience, or even sometimes I'll say, I'm like, so that means we're just talking to ourselves, because this conference is supposed to be a conversation between you and I.
And Nancy, you know, they leave without appointing someone to gather feedbacks. And what is a conference if you don't, you know, take feedback and work on them? Go back, you know, to work on them. So we have a lot to do, especially from the side of government. We need to leverage on private sector discipline, private sector attitude towards work, our work ethic, and then we can push in that direction while we pray that the Nigerian government sits up and listen to, you know, the solutions that we're proffering, because the private sector can't do it alone.
I hope that they are listening, especially to this concern of mine, because you just brought it up and it's been something that's been aching my heart. Yes, you will see all the private. I did one, was it last week, the 2-day conference. And the vice president was supposed to be there. Of course, we didn't even start on time because we were all waiting for him. He sent a representative. We now started. At the end of the day, everybody just left, including the minister. Everyone just left. So we're like talking to ourselves. People were asking questions. Government officials that are supposed to be in the room and answer those questions, or say, okay, we hear you. We'll take it back. We'll take your feedback and work on it, and they were nowhere to be found. But just before we go on, I must also acknowledge that there was one conference that I anchored and moderated. That was in... which month are we now? I'm lost for time.
We're in October.
We're in October. I think that was in August, precisely in Cross River State. And I've told anybody that cares to listen, I anchored the Economic Investment and Cooperation, International Cooperation Summit in Cross River. I was there for 2 days on the invitation of the government to come there and anchor and moderate the conference. Bountiful. And I said it there not because I wanted to, you know, swell their egos. The governor and the deputy governor were there from morning till night.
So because...
And I was like, people were asking questions. I said, Governor, over to you. That's it. Okay. And governor was like, he will wink at me. No, Nancy, I want to answer that question. Or the governor would be like, no, I want to comment. I was like, since I've been doing this, I have not seen this. Because after some time, the governors will just leave. And once they leave, entourage leaves with them. And the rest of the room is talking to them. So I hope as you're listening now, please, let's do better. We have a new administration in town, so let's do better.
So in all fairness, we have some government...
For 2 days they were there. The governor was there from 12 till 8 p.m. Crazy. Investors, it was an investor summit. People were coming, governor side. The next day, the governor, I think, traveled. The deputy governor was there from morning till night. In all the panels. And I was like, excuse me. I was like, this is it.
So when you find governments that are serious about, you know, development in their state, you see their attitude is different. For example, I attended a conference, the Africa Summit Conference, hosted by Sterling One Foundation and the United Nations, and in Lagos State. And
they did it in Lagos this time.
And
last year they were in Abuja.
Yeah, and the governor the governor was out of the country, but the deputy governor sat there, finished his keynote speech, attended a few panels, And then you could see that he really needed to leave because I think there was an executive meeting, the state executive meeting or something, and then I think he needed to preside over that. So we found that government officials who commit to doing the work, who are serious about doing the work, they go and they do the work.
So what would we say about the agricultural sector now, which you are a player? Have you seen the seriousness coming from from this new administration? Let's start from that. Since we're talking about work ethics, since we're talking about new things, do you sense that new things will be done, that there's a new sheriff in town in that space?
Okay, so the new sheriff, well, I'm here to give my honest opinion, and I really don't care because I don't work for
You're a
government.
stakeholder.
Exactly, I don't work for government. I'm going to speak with candor. First of all, the new sheriff who's in town, I think it's taking too long to hit the ground running. We've seen what other ministers are doing. The Minister of Work, the Minister of the FCT, they're out there. Last week, some colleagues of mine were in the press briefings of the Federal Ministry of Food Security, Agriculture and Food Security, and they came back with some action points and all of that. But look, it's long overdue. They've been appointed for months now. So we think that the Ministry of Agriculture needs to roll out a plan to say these are actionable steps and milestones. We're past the days of, we just come out with a plan and we can monitor where we're headed, with timelines and projects as they come. So I think the minister needs to look at a lot of points in the value chain. We need to take processing serious because processing holds a whole new potential to change the game drastically.
But does processing solely lie with him? Because when you come to processing, you're also talking a bit of manufacturing in that sense. Because processing is within the value chain, I agree, in terms of turning the raw products, like cocoa, which I mentioned earlier, that we should be doing more. So I don't just want to be seeing raw cocoa beans. I want to see chocolate. I want to see some other value adds from cocoa. So does it really rest with his ministry?
Okay, so for starters, let's take it back a bit to speaking about AJ Banga. You heard him talk about doing collaborations with governments, like different countries and all of that. So I think, the minister is in a position to call on organizations or institutions like the Bank of Agriculture, the Bank of Industry, the AFDB and all of that, to sit them down and say, look, we need to get finance solely for processing. Organizations who are serious about doing processing, we want to fund them. We want to, government can go ahead and establish a special purpose vehicle who's going to be managing investments in processing. They are going to be owning equities of different companies, and help drive that sector, because that is one way India got out of their previous...
So you said like the NLNG style?
Something like that, but for agriculture. Do you understand? Because agriculture is suffering a lot. For an organization like ours, ALANA Grain Limited, we're a total farming solutions company, and we help smallholder farmers optimize their yield per hectare through providing input, agri-tech advancements, and then guaranteeing access to market. Now, we work our butts off a lot, trying to provide solutions for farmers with very expensive capital, number one, and then sometimes you don't have access to capital in some cases because you hear the interest rates and you're scared of what might come out of it if you don't succeed in the project that you need to pull. So government is the only body that has the capacity to give low interest rates finance, and more so patient funding. So government needs to sit up. Our government needs to do better. Look at India and their transformational stage. It didn't take them so long. They leverage on the Millennium Development Goals, something I think Nigeria should leverage on the Sustainable Development Goals. Look, I've said this in a lot of places, and I'm going to say it again. We don't lack the skill set. For crying out loud, Nigeria is doing over $230-something million in the business process outsourcing industry, which means we have the right skill set for the entire world. Right? So why can't we leverage on our skill set to transform the country using agriculture, as a backbone, so to speak.
What you're saying now brings me to the history around interventions. We've seen interventions so much in agriculture. You have the Anchor Boras program. You have a lot of schemes that even by state governments support to to the agricultural sector. Are you saying, and I hear you when you talked about patient capital, because the sector also needs patient capital. The sector also needs a private sector, even the banking sector that understands agriculture, not just in terms of even crop production, but in terms of also the risk that come with crop production and even processing, which you talked about earlier. But how about those interventions? What do you think about those interventions? Haven't they worked, or were they not good strategies as to facilitating the sector?
So the Anchor Borrower program.
Not just the Anchor Boras program, there are a lot of them.
Well, I'll speak on the one that was recently just publicized across the world, and that's the Anchor Borrowers program. In my honest opinion, I think it was a flop because there was no sustainability in the program. More so, we know that it's been suspended as we speak, right? Because of the fraudulent claims that were attached to the program. So people who are rent seekers, people who are political farmers, so we had cases of people who even had companies registered for hairdressing. They were getting finance when organizations who actually mean to do the job could not even have access to these things. We saw that through NISA, a lot of monies were lost, funds were appropriated in the wrong places. So we need to do better in developing an intervention model.
So what kind of intervention model are you proposing?
And here's what I think. I think intervention should be in a case of blended finance.
What do you mean by that?
Good. So blended finance is bringing capital market finance and development finance together. So government look at companies, agricultural companies who are doing well to say, look, make an equity contribution to us or to this project at so percent, maybe 20, 30%, and government will bring in 70%. That way companies as well will not play, around the project because they understand that their own capital as well is involved in the project. Government also will be held responsible because the private sector will be pushing them and holding them, in uncomfortable places to say, look, this thing is slowed down. We're supposed to have achieved this at this point. What is going on? Your finance is tying the project down and it's causing us to run, high interest rates and not achieving the goal. So we need to look more in the angle of blended finance. That's one way we can transform, the agricultural sector. Intervention should not be the old model of government brings fertilizer, we give to farmers, is announced, and all of that. They grow, you can't monitor growth. No. We should be looking at building institutions to train people on building our own tractors, our harvesters, our tillers.
But we have the Bank of Agriculture.
Great.
For example, if you're talking about building institutions to train our own people to begin to manufacture inputs like tractors, is that what you said?
Yes, exactly.
And it's possible. It's possible.
It's very so.
So that's where science and tech ministry comes in.
And I said we do not lack the skill set, right? Now, so the business process outsourcing industry is crying out for Nigeria to push its numbers. I attended the conference again at the NEPC on this issue, right? Because they feel that Nigeria is doing well, but they feel that Nigeria is not doing as good. India is doing over let me talk about Egypt. Egypt is doing over, I think, $800 and something million in the business process outsourcing industry. So if we're more populated than Egypt and we have the right skill set, why are we not pushing these numbers?
Okay, let me ask you about expectations for the 2023 harvest season. We're gradually moving to the end of this year. How time flies, really. What are your expectations for this 2023 season? Let's also just oppose it with smallholder farmers, because we have many smallholder farmers. Big ups to smallholder farmers in Nigeria, because they are the ones that are making us feed. And according to data by the FAO, that's the Food and Agricultural Organization, we have about 34 million farmers. So how do you tie in all of this?
So, like I said, what we do is, to optimize farmers' yield per hectare. So, smallholders are amazing people. I was just having a conversation in the waiting room, and I introduced myself as a farmer. And another lady, she said, "No, Oga, you are not a farmer." And I laughed. I said, "Look, this is how farmers are supposed to be, the way I am. So smallholder farmers are great people. They're doing a lot of work. I also want to tell you that both development organizations and aggregation companies are doing great work in training farmers on sustainable practices. I can speak about the work we at ALANA Grain we're doing, for farmers. We're training farmers on the use of simple machines like mobile seed planters, mobile tillers, and all of that. We're training farmers on the need to use improved seeds to increase their yield per hectare, and that will in turn give them more money.
So where do we get that improved seeds from? We have even the Seed Council. I think there's an agency called Seed
Council. We have
there are many agencies for different things.
Yeah, so
Seed Council I think under the Ministry of Agriculture.
That's correct.
Where we also have our ITA, of course, International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, that is also doing an amazing job. How are our farmers integrating with these institutions to be able to, come up with more sustainable practices?
So we work really closely with farmers, right? So whatever I'm telling you today is, actual feedback. As a matter of fact, I'm harvesting as we speak. I was harvesting rice, yesterday on the farm. And smallholders are, my workforce and all of that. So input is really accessible to smallholder farmers at the time. Farmers no longer farm commodities, so maybe a handful, maybe 10, 15%, and that's understandable. In time, as we get, better finance, to push our projects, I'm talking about aggregation companies in general and even also at ALANA Grain, to push our projects, we'll be able to train farmers better. Now, the thing is, companies in agriculture need to become more sustainable, right? They need to integrate a sustainability plan. You don't go and sell seeds to farmers, leave them on their own. They go and they plant. It will be the same result, or pretty much they will fail. So they will ask themselves, why are they buying more expensive seeds and getting the same result? So we've had engagements with farmers where farmers tell you that, so we have fertilizer called NPK 201010. And farmers will tell you that the application of that fertilizer is 20 days, 10 days interval, and then 10 days. And that's completely wrong, right? NPK stands for nitrogen, potassium, and, phosphorus. And you see that farmers need more training, to know how to apply these things. That way, they'll keep coming back to you.
Okay, Bountiful, I'm also looking at our time. How are farmers dealing with the issue of insecurity? Has it reduced? And let me also speak from a personal experience. I would say I'm a farmer in my own little way too. Yeah, just a few days ago, I was called in the morning and I was told that cattle just went into, and it's all fenced. The land is all fenced up, high fences that I did. And I was just told that the cattle I don't know how they did it, I don't know. They just entered the farm, reduced what is on my farmland to not. And I'm trying to, and I can imagine what farmers are feeling, someone that is dependent on that. So how are they dealing with insecurity?
So,
and these people will do it, nothing will happen to them. So tomorrow they will come back.
So that's a political issue, and I'm not going to delve
It's not a political issue. It's about financial costs. It's financial burden to farmers.
No, I hear you.
And it's about food output too.
You spoke about repercussions. That's a political issue. Okay. Repercussion is a political. I'm not going to talk about politics.
I thought about.
Let me talk about the one that concerns me, agriculture. Now, I have a friend who's a major general retired. He farms about 100 and something hectares in Nasarawa, 126. And he says to me, Bountiful, I have 34 hectares for your organization. You can take it. But the problem is, I don't know how you deal, with the headsmen. I said, sir, what do we do? And he said, look, I'm a retired major general. And these people know that I am a major general. I've been in this community, integrated with them. And cows still come into cows, flock, everywhere in my fields. So this is an issue for government to resolve this issue of the herdsmen crisis and then the insecurity. More so this year for production, like you asked earlier, for harvest, I think we're going to experience a lot of surge in food prices. One, there's food inflation, which is at 26.98% at the time. We also see that there's a Niger crisis, and Niger, amongst others, Chad, Mali, Niger is somewhere that food, raw materials come through, through our porous borders from Kamba and those places, you know, to ease the pressure on production. So with this crisis now, that is off it. In fact, I heard from a reliable source that we're taking some maize somewhere around the north central down to Niger at this point. So we should get ready for soaring high food prices, and then we should buffer ourselves. I also think that the solution, you know, is in sight. It's commendable what you're doing farming. I think a lot of urban people need to come
Urban
into
involvement, isn't it?
in farming. So you can start up an urban garden. I've said this a lot of places. It takes nothing, maybe a pepper garden or a tomato garden at the back of your house. That takes off the cost of buying pepper
Food.
from you. And that means, you know, the price relatively doesn't affect, so to speak.
Okay, just a few seconds to go because I'm getting direction from in my ears. I also need to talk about pests and diseases because that is one thing also that affects our farmers. I'm also speaking from a personal experience. You know, they say experience is the best teacher. But we know that I think there was a case of anthrax in Niger. There's a case of even ticks on cattle itself and even tomatoes. I think this tuta absoluta on
so
tomatoes.
You're a farmer, Nancy.
Yeah, I'm a farmer, but I'm also a science student, so I understand those things too. Yeah, so how are farmers dealing with this, and how is it also going to affect food output? Is that also affecting food inflation?
So we found that tomato prices were crazy, and a lot of people didn't bother to ask. They said it was insecurity. Well, that makes sense, but that doesn't make sense why you should just go crazy in one money. I think a basket of tomato was almost 50,000 naira, and that was affected by 40,000 hectares of tuta absoluta and up north. Now, there are solutions for pests and diseases. So farmers need to start embracing technology. We have companies like Syngenta who we're partners with, and we're doing great work on the end. For vegetable control, we have products like Red Meal, Ampligo, and some other ones.
So perhaps on another day we'll talk about the use of even AI. That's how actually we are in particular AI, artificial intelligence in
We're
agriculture.
also doing something on that.
So we may talk about that on a later date, and as well as controlling pests and diseases, because that's one thing concerning agriculture. Thank you very much for coming. Bountiful Atako.
It's a pleasure.
Managing Director, ALANA Green Limited. We've been talking about the agricultural sector in Nigeria. That's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Please join me again, same time on the station. That's tomorrow. I am Nancy Naji. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. Bye now.